Stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues.
Good morning and thank you for being with us. This is Khalil Hachem with US Arab Radio. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday. The weather is getting nicer and nicer, and I don't know whether this year is going to be a hot year or a mild year, but so far I've been enjoying the weather. We have a great show for you today. We're waiting for a guest to join us. We're going to be talking about Syria. There was a great news from Syria. As you well know, President Trump is visiting the Gulf states. I think he netted so far about $2 trillion in investments and gifts and money. So we can say that it has been a very successful trip for President Trump. And also a byproduct of that trip was his announcement, that is, announcement that he will lift off the sanctions of Syria. As you well know, the United States has imposed terrible sanctions on Syria a long time ago, trying to push that country toward the American orbit, and these have really hurt the country. They really don't hurt the rulers; they hurt the people. And the announcement came in as a great news for the Syrian people who are trying to put their country back after the departure of the Assad, the son, after 50 years of ruling in Syria. And these sanctions have been horrible. Hopefully, they're going to allow the Syrian people to, or the Syrian government rather, to put it together and help it move forward, because right now the country needs to be rebuilt. Its economy needs to be rebuilt, and there's a lot more involved with that. And then as soon as our guest to join us, we'll delve more into it. And it's a very important topic because Syria was Syria was somebody was. We all were hoping that the son, the Assad son, would be different than his dad, and he would bring, because when he took over, it was a really totally different time. This is the guy who was studying as a doctor in Europe, and then he would usher in more democratic, more equity, and more openness, and then allow, even though this is really it doesn't happen in the Arab world, but we had a lot of hopes that he would really change the country, and unfortunately he did not, and he proved to be really a terrible leader. And then he, when the Arabic Spring, which was engineered by the West, and chiefly Israel, took place, he did not react correctly to it, and then the country was dragged into civil war, and there are a lot of foreign fighters in the country, and the country went downhill from there even further, more and more and more. Some of the sanctions that were leveled on Syria also because Syria did not want to sign an agreement with Israel. And because, Syria at the time, and rightly so, was asking that it would sign an agreement with Israel if Israel would give back the Golan Heights. And then there was a dispute over that. And I think Assad the father thought that he had a lot of time to, to live and see it happen. And he took his time, and then he missed his opportunity to really find some kind of agreement with Israel. The Israeli plan is to make peace with everybody except the Palestinians, which is really to isolate the Palestinians. And this is something that the Palestinians themselves, and chiefly Yasser Arafat, the late Yasser Arafat, ushered in which he departed from the status quo, which is before 1993, the Oslo Accord. I think it was 93, in the early 90s, the Oslo Accord, and then the Palestinians deciding to, forge an agreement with Israel. Um, it was all these countries were waiting to see what's going to happen with the Palestinian issue, and then the Palestinians surprised everybody by talking to the Israelis and trying to be on their own. So that left other countries, or left Israel the chance to really, make peace with other countries and uh, uh, you know uh, and then just go ahead and um, make peace with them, and so they start making peace with the uh, make peace with different countries, and that's really what happened. And then they made peace with Jordan. They already made peace with Egypt. They made peace with Jordan. They made peace with the peace agreement, that is, with the Gulf states and with Morocco, I believe, and other countries as well. And that was the Israeli plan, is to take to take or make peace treaties, that is, between different countries to isolate the Palestinians, because the plan in Israel seems to be not to grant the Palestinian a state. They may be few people living there, but their plan is to move as many people out as possible, force them to move out, and then take their land, as Israel has been doing since the beginning of since 1948. And I think that originally the Palestinians sold themselves very short in doing that, and so now here we are. Look at what's going on in Gaza. I mean, this morning I was reading 250 people dead, yesterday 70 people dead, and then starvation, and then preventing them from food and water and medicine, and I was really surprised during all of these meetings. None of the Arabic leaders really mentioned anything about Gaza, anything about what's going on in Lebanon. Israel is attacking Lebanon on a daily basis. Excuse me. And all of these things, and I wonder, is it all about surviving? Because President Trump said to the Arabic states, Gulf states, that we protect you, you're in power. To these families that rule these states, you're in power because of us, and you have to pay for it. And he went in to collect the payment for protecting them, protect not the countries, protect these families to stay in power. So that's the price of staying in power, which is $2 trillion. And can you imagine that these $2 trillion Gulf Arabic states spent on improving the Arab world, improving the conditions in Sudan and Yemen and in Syria, in other places, and the other question is that if Arab countries spent half of that money in Syria, do really need lifting the sanctions on Syria? So one can argue, is this really a good policy? But it is what it is, and hopefully it would help the Syrian people. It would really help the Syrian people to help them put their country back together, because the country is decimated after the civil war, after years with under the Assad, the brutal Assad regimes, and hopefully they'll put it back together. What we're gonna do here, we're gonna take a short break. We'll be right back. Please stay tuned.
A car accident can change your life in an instant. As a result of a car accident, you may become unemployed. As a result of a car accident, you may need a lot of medical treatment. People think that insurance companies are on their side. Why? Because they're giving them one or two benefits. Are they giving them all the benefits they deserve? How would one know unless you consult with an attorney? Call the law offices of Joumana Kirouz at 248-557-3645. 248-557-3645.
Every year in Michigan, approximately 3,000 people die of drug overdose. Today's drugs are more addictive and deadlier than ever before. Most street opioids tested contain a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl. Drug overdoses are preventable. Keep naloxone on hand. Together, we can change the statistics. Learn how to save lives at michigan.gov/SUD. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
Life for Relief and Development has now been rated as one of the best charities for humanitarian aid. Life's humanitarian projects span the globe, and Life is celebrating its 30th anniversary of providing essential life-saving aid to people and communities in 36 countries, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. Where there is life, there is hope. And when disaster occurs here or around the world, including being one of the first responders to the Turkey-Syria earthquake crisis, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. We are looking to help the earthquake victims, and we take 0% overhead on emergency donations. So please help improve these efforts. Learn more about our involvement to help the helpless and bring hope where it's needed most, and make your tax-deductible donation to Life for Relief and Development now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's 248-424-7493.
Welcome back, and thank you for being with us. This is Khalil Hachem with US Arab Radio. And then we're talking about the announcement that the United States will lift the sanctions on Syria. And I'm not sure whether it is off or on, but it's on Syria. And which is really, really good news. I think Jerry is with us this morning. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, Mr. Khalil Hachem. Thank you for taking my call. I miss you. How you doing, Mr. Khalil?
Good. How are you? I miss you too, Jerry.
Thank you, Mr. Khalil. I know sometimes you have a big plate, some other show, so I don't want to bother you sometimes. Because
That's okay. That's okay. It's always good to hear from you.
Thank you. Mr. Khalil Hachem, talking about the Middle East right now, and especially the visit of American President Mr. Donald Trump to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the Arab Emirates. What surprised me, Mr. Khalil, at the beginning, I do say it is a positive step for the United States to get close to the Middle East countries, to the leaders over there, especially now the government of Saudi Arabia playing a big role, like it seemed to me like it's in a leadership in the Middle East. But what surprised me, Mr. Khalil, nobody mentioned from those meetings with those three Arab leaders, nobody mentioned to the American president, what about Gaza? What about the Palestinian? What about the two-state solution? Yes, you come over here, Mr. President, no problem to sign some commercial trade between the countries. Nothing wrong with that. But you mentioned Ukraine, Russia. What about Gaza? What about the Palestinian people? Is Mr. Netanyahu will keep massacre what's left over from the civilian in Gaza? I mean, this is not right. You know, I did vote for President Donald Trump, Mr. Khalil. It doesn't mean I agree with him with everything he's doing. I mean, there is a positive and there is negative. And I see the negative right now in the Middle East that nobody mentioned nothing about this civilian.
Yeah, isn't
about
that
the
something that
hunger.
nobody would mention anything about Gaza? People starving to death, and here we're giving President Trump $400 billion a plane. It's just unbelievable. But Jerry, today the good news is the announcement that he would lift the sanctions off Syria, and this is going to help the Syrian people really put back their country together. It's really unfortunate what's going on in the Middle East, and I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you're listening, is the fact that all this money that Mr. Trump netted, about $2 trillion, had been spent on the Middle East, that would have made the Middle East really a great place to live. But unfortunately, this money that President Trump is getting, this is basically the price of protecting these families, the ruling families in these countries. This is basically what it is. And Mr. Trump said that. So hopefully that it would benefit everybody, but it's unfortunately I share your concern, Jerry, that they did not mention anything about Gaza, and it's really a shame. Or Lebanon. I mean, look at Israel is bombing Lebanon every day.
Lebanon.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
Lebanon, yeah. I mean, Lebanon, that's another thing besides Palestine and besides, let's say, Ukraine-Russia war. But Lebanon, the paradise of the Middle East, Syria, the beautiful garden of the Middle East. The history stands thousands of years behind Damascus and Syria. It was a good step, Mr. Khalil, that President Trump came face to face to shake the hands of Mr. Ahmed al-Sharra and the president of the
Syria.
Crown Royal of Saudi, Mohammed bin Salman. It was a good step because I love to see
it. Is a good step. It is a good step. Yeah.
Rebuilt.
But Jerry, thank you. I really appreciate your sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Mr. Khalil Hachem.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Please stay tuned.
Accident can change your life in an instant. As a result of a car accident, you may become unemployed. As a result of a car accident, you may need a lot of medical treatment. People think that insurance companies are on their side. Why? Because they're giving them one or two benefits. Are they giving them all the benefits they deserve? How would one know unless you consult with an attorney? Call the law offices of Rheumatology at 248-557-3645. 248-557-3645.
Behind the scenes, Michigan's public health team is working to make Michiganders across the state healthier, bringing healthcare closer to home with mobile clinics, increasing access to healthy food through farmers markets and WIC, doing hearing and vision screenings in schools, helping families navigate healthcare challenges. Learn more about how public health workers protect us all at michigan.gov/public health. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you. Welcome back, and thank you for being with us. This is Khalil Hachem. We're discussing the wonderful announcement that the United States would lift the sanctions off Syria, and then this is hopefully is going to help the Syrian people putting their country back together. And with us this morning is Dr. Tarek Kteleh. Good morning, Doctor. Are you with us? Can you hear us?
Good morning. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you. We appreciate your joining us, and it's really good to have you with us, Dr. Tarek. Am I saying your last name correctly?
Kteleh, yeah. I appreciate.
Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Rheumatology of Indiana and Chairman of the Syrian American Alliance for Peace and Prosperity. Again, we're honored that you are with us this morning.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts about this great announcement that the sanctions will be lifted off Syria?
It's immense. It's so thrilling. People are so happy. I don't know if you guys have seen that. They were celebrating in the streets. It's probably the second best day for Syrian since for the last probably at least 100 years. after just the toppling of Assad on December 8th.
What before we talk about the sanctions, what are the conditions right now in Syria? I mean, you got years of I don't want to talk about the father, the son turned out to be a really huge disappointment to the son Assad, and then he dragged the country into a civil war. And what are the conditions now?
Absolutely, the conditions are so bad. The country is not just like at zero; it's below zero. The they were saying it's not, people are not there under the poverty level; they are under the hunger level. The for example, the salary there is about $10 to $20 a month.
Okay.
That's a month, not an hour. Here we don't accept it an hour.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
electricity comes about 2 to 3 hours a day. And now I think recently they got it up to 5 hours and everyone is celebrating. Just
Yeah.
imagine you're living 5 hours a day on electricity. I visited Jober with the two congressmen. We got the opportunity to take the first two congressmen, Congress delegation to Syria after the Assad fall, and we went to Jobar, and oh my gosh, I mean, you cannot imagine the
Yeah.
destruction there. It's, even if you've got the worst earthquake ever, you're not gonna get such destruction. And with the sanctions, people came back from refuge. You got few millions of refugees in the camps and tents and Idlib and other areas. They came back to see their homes, hoping that, okay, Assad is no longer there, we're safe, we can go back to our home. They came back and they saw all this destruction, and there is no way they can return to their home. Millions of people. So
Yeah.
that's where these sanctions are very hurting, because no one is willing and able to invest in reconstruction and helping the people with these sanctions.
How old are these sanctions?
Well, some of it, there's multiple layers of sanctions.
Yes. Yes.
I think they started in the 1970, maybe 79, I heard. Uh, and they kept going more and more and more. And of course, the most serious one, the severe one, was the Caesar Act in 2018.
Sure.
Actually, it started in 19, and it was targeting mainly the Assad regime because of the atrocity it committed against its people. So for,
People. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the Assad regime killed about 1 million Syrian and destroyed whole cities. They bombarded. They brought the Russian, the Iranian. They were doing carpet bombing. They don't distinguish civilian versus hospital versus university. Everything is a target for them. And the no one, unfortunately, because of the veto, the Russian veto in the Security Council, no one was doing anything, and they got protected, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they got
Just like
immune.
what's happening right now in Gaza, because of the American veto, nobody's doing anything.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that's the situation some
Yeah.
places in the world, and my hope, and that people in Gaza will get eventually to what the Syrian people got, and live in dignity and in peace and without this bombardment.
Yeah. So timeline, when would these sanctions be lifted? And then when, what is it going to do immediately to Syria?
So usually, there is bureaucracy in the
Of
U.S.
course.
government.
Yeah.
However, because President Trump tend to be an unusual president, and because of the support that lifting the sanction got in the Middle East, especially in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, other places, maybe even United Arab Emirates, everywhere. So he feels that he need to deliver on his promise, and he said it. And usually, when he says something, he tried to deliver. And so we're expecting a very fast lifting of at least the major ones, the banking, the SWIFT banking, where people can send money, countries can send money. And we heard that the U.S. Treasury and the State Department starting to work on this very swiftly. I actually
Good.
got even call from some large, big companies, big U.S. companies, and they were saying, "Well, we have to go and invest, and we think this is gonna be very swift and fast and unusual, but that's their expectation."
That's good. That's good. Now, there is money that Syria has in banks around the world. Is that going to be also be brought in back to Syria?
So I don't know about this specific situation.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
would think eventually it does, but you have to remember that the this is U.S. sanction lifting. Now, if there is
Okay.
European
Yeah.
sanctions, if there is, so it's not as easy
Yes.
to
Yes.
get. And I heard, to be honest with you, that there's a couple of things everyone need to know. Number one, Israel and especially Netanyahu is not happy with the
Of
sanction
course
lifting,
not. Of course not.
and the report.
He doesn't want to see Syria a prosperous country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the reports said that he actually, when he came to the United States, just he visited states about 2 weeks ago or so, that he asked President Trump not to lift the sanction.
Yeah.
So that's number one. So there are some factions that are pushing toward keeping the sanctions, including in United States government.
Yeah.
There are some faction even in the government itself, that some parties that their major issue is anti-terrorism, and they are just not going beyond that. The Ashara used to be in Iraq fighting
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
20 years ago or whenever. Even though he changed, he admitted that it's 20 years ago. He's willing to work with the United States now. They still have these suspicions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other thing is that there are other issues. Like, for example, I heard a story where there is some legal action because the Syrian Assad regime participated in some bombing of some air flights, and there are legal action that they need money from the Syrian government. And so it's a little bit complicated
It
for the
is.
money that's
Yeah.
are in the banks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I read the other day that they're forming a committee, and I hope that Syria does that to really trace some of the money that was looted by the Assad's family and taken out of the country. And I mean that's a huge number of money. It's a huge, and I hope that that committee will bring back that money back to where it belongs, which is Syrian people. And nothing would make me happier than seeing the Assad brought back for for trial. I mean,
For justice.
yeah, he exactly, he needs to face justice for all the crimes that he committed in that country. And I don't want to pick on Assad. I mean, all the Arab leaders are you know are horrible. So but at this time, maybe this is a good time for justice for the Syrian people. Syria is a beautiful country, and it's really unfortunate what happened there.
Thank you. I agree. Justice should be served everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But if we have an area where we can serve it, it doesn't mean that we should not do that because
Yeah.
other areas are still suffering. We should try to get justice for everyone.
Yeah.
And wherever we can get it, we should get it.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to remind our listeners that Damascus, which is the capital of Syria, is the oldest, most continuous city in the world, which is really a great distinction for that region. Syria is a rich country, not only in natural resources, it's also in its diversity of people and also agricultural land. So Syria has a lot to offer if the Syrians really get to a point where they can pull together and then and then rebuild their country. How long do you think, if things work well, it would take to rebuild the country in Syria?
I'm really optimistic. It's a very daunting task, very challenging, because the estimate was Syria need about between 200 to 300 billion dollar for rebuilding. So it's a huge number. But let me tell you, the Syrian people are resilient.
Yeah.
They do have resources that unfortunately was abused and exploited by the Assad family. Now, with a better governing and a better government, we expect a lot of these resources are going to go for reconstruction and for improving the Syrian people lives. instead of being, put in banks in Russia and Iran and other places.
Yeah, yeah.
We There is a lot of countries that are willing to help. You've seen how Saudi Arabia and Qatar are very interested in helping Syria. So we expect that hopefully in the next 4 to 5 years, we'll see different Syria. We'll see a
Yeah,
Syria
yeah.
that's peaceful, that's prosperous, that is an example that people can take and say, look how Syria is now, with a better government that follow the rule of law, that's comprehensive, inclusive, and that's the hope.
Yeah.
Is it difficult? It is, and it's going to take a lot of time and efforts. And now the other good thing is, so far the government, despite some reservation about where they're coming from, their background, they've shown a lot of promise. They
They have. They have.
good language, and on the ground there is some probably areas where they still have to work for civil peace, and to get everyone together and be more inclusive. So there is some room for them for improvement, definitely. And however, I think with lifting the sanction, that will give them more ammunition to go ahead and do better development and reforms and get more inclusive.
Absolutely. It's not easy to come back from from where Syria is, and then rebuild the country, and they have a lot of factions in there. I was listening the other day to the demands that the United States is, because you have to. United States is going to lift the sanctions, and then now the question is, what's the cost? What's going to cost the Syrians? The United States is not going to lift the sanctions because they love the Syrian people. No, there are demands there, and some of them, I don't agree with all of them, but some of them are really valid demands, like foreign fighters. And I'm sure that the Syrian government is struggling with something like that, ISIS and some of that. What have you heard in regard to that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There are demands, of course, um, and some of them are legitimate, and some of them are more probably aggressive. I'm sure they will find a way to work things
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
And we have to remember one important thing, though. Syria has a very great situation and geopolitical conditions and location
Location, yeah, yeah, yeah.
of United States and its national security. It's in our interest here as United States citizen and government and administration to keep Syria in the camp of, or at least to keep it neutral and not let it continue to be with the camp of Russia and Iran and China. And the this is very crucial, and the sanction basically is pushing the US, the Syrian government, the Syrian people, to unfortunately go back to Russia and Iran and China because they have no other option. So lifting the sanction, and actually I have an article that's going to be published at the Washington Times soon, and it is about the, how we're sanctioning ourselves out of Syria. We are the United States sanctioning ourselves out of there because of these sanctions. So it's in the U.S. interest to lift the sanction, to work with the Syrian government to ensure peace and prosperity in the area. And so we have to always remember that. So it's not only one side; it's a double edge. It's
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
mutual interest
yeah,
for
yeah,
both countries.
yeah. Nothing is free, and people need to understand this. Also, you're dealing with chaos, and immersion out of the chaos is not as easy as a lot of people think. I mean, if Syria can emerge with few scratches, I think it's a great thing that they would do for that country. Do you have any information? Are Syrians going back?
Yeah. Can you still hear me? Just making sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, yeah, there is a lot of people who came back, whoever their homes are still intact.
yeah,
They went back to their homes. The problem, as we mentioned, is there is still a lot of destruction and millions of people lost their homes and they cannot rebuild their homes. It's a whole area that's destructed. So you need to have the plumbing, you need to have the sewer system, you need everything.
Yeah.
And so it's going to take years to rebuild. But the first step in the long, way, the first mile start with lifting the sanctions. So at least there is, money coming, there is investor coming to try to help rebuild.
Yeah. A lot of people don't really understand how big is that lifting the sanctions. I mean, some countries have been lobbying to do this for years and didn't get it. And this is a huge, this is really a huge boost into Syria's arm to bring back the country back together. And I hope that more and more people go back to rebuild the country, because I don't know. Do you know how many millions Syrians are left the country over the years?
Estimated that there are about 10 million people. So basically, you've got Syrian people, about 23 million. About 10 of them left the country. Turkey alone had about 4 million people.
Mm-hmm. Like a million in Lebanon.
There is about a million in Lebanon, million in Jordan. There is about over 1.5 million in Europe. So, and internally, there is about 4 to 5 million that are displaced internally. They left their homes because of the bombardment and went to Idlib or went somewhere else where they have tents there.
Yeah.
You have to remember, it was in 2012-13 when this happened, with the bombardment and the carpet bombing of whole cities. It was the worst refugee crisis since World War II.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. Here's the bigger question. Syria had witnessed a brain drain. All of these professionals left the country, and whether they're doctors, engineers, professors. Do you think would these people return? I mean, now they live in the West and they're comfortable and they have good jobs. Do you think that some of them may return?
It's difficult to answer, to be honest. I'm optimistic that many are going to return to try to help building their country. I've seen a few, at least, who already showed interest. Some of them actually went back. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, she's a member, actually, she's a board member in our organization, the Syrian American Alliance for Peace and Prosperity. And she's a regional director at Microsoft in the Gulf area. And she is considering going and joining the government and working for the telecommunication ministry to help them rebuild the telecommunication. She's just trying to make sure it's legal because of the sanction, because of the designation and all of that. That's what she's working on. She's willing to take a long leave from her Microsoft position as a director, executive director, to go there. So yes, there are people who are passionate about rebuilding their countries, and that's why lifting the sanctions is very helpful to make them able to go and do that. I mean, just imagine, there is no internet there. I was there. I went twice actually there in the last 3-4 months. I got the opportunity to meet the president at Shara in both times. And, there's no electricity. You cannot get to access your bank. I could not. That's a bank. They need like VPN and I don't know what. Even in the hotels, I was in the Sheraton, which is supposed to be one of the top hotels. Even the hotels, you have to go to the lobby to be able to get any kind of signal. In your room, you have no signal. In the lobby, you barely can make phone calls or WhatsApp calls, or it's so poor, and you cannot do much. No investment, no tourism is going to happen when you have this infrastructure and destroyed. Unfortunately, Assad. And instead, when I went there, I was not able to go there for about 14 years since the war started in 2011. Okay, my last time there was 2010, and then 2025 when I went. So 15 years. When I went there, I saw the country, at least Damascus, same as 15 years before. It just got older and worse. For 15 years, he did not. That guy who stole the whole country and sold it to Russia and Iran, he did not put any money in the country. He did not do anything. So the whole infrastructure has deteriorated. Everything is, you're talking about maybe 30, 40 year probably. We're back about 40, 50 years probably in times right now in Syria.
Yeah, yeah. It's unbelievable. Sometimes when I visit Lebanon and I look at it, it's like it's so certain part of it's like frozen in time. I left it 40 years ago and I go back and it looks the same. I'm like, I can't believe it. Look what where the world is, and then these neighborhoods, they look frozen in time. It's just unbelievable. So here's what we're gonna do, Doctor. We're gonna take a short break. We'll be right back. Please stay with us.
Absolutely.
Life for Relief and Development has now been rated as one of the best charities for humanitarian aid. Life's humanitarian projects span the globe, and Life is celebrating its 30th anniversary of providing essential life-saving aid to people and communities in 36 countries, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. Where there is life, there is hope. And when disaster occurs here or around the world, including being one of the first responders to the Turkey-Syria earthquake crisis, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. We are looking to help the earthquake victims, and we take 0% overhead on emergency donations. So please help improve these efforts. Learn more about our involvement to help the helpless and bring hope where it's needed most, and make your tax-deductible donation to Life for Relief and Development now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's 248-424-7493.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
A car accident can change your life in an instant. As a result of a car accident, you may become unemployed. As a result of a car accident, you may need a lot of medical treatment. People think that insurance companies are on their side. Why? Because they're giving them one or two benefits. Are they giving them all the benefits they deserve? How would one know unless you consult with an attorney? Call the law offices of Jumana Kiruz at 248-557-3645. 248-557-3645.
Welcome back, and thank you for being with us. We're discussing the announcement of lifting the sanctions of Syria, which is really a great announcement, and hope that this will help jumpstart rebuilding the country from chaos, from destruction, from because as we mentioned earlier, there were infrastructure, everything you need to do, you need everything, from infrastructure to roads, to including roads, sewer, you name it. So, and we are discussing it with Dr. Kteleh. Are you still with us, Doctor?
Yes, I am here.
The big question. There are two big questions here. One is, and we'll know the details later, is what would the United States get as far as gas and oil? Because Syria is a rich country, and hopefully that they will negotiate a good deal. Excuse me, that is good for Syria. At the end of the day, you're going to need some foreign companies to invest to extract oil and gas. But hopefully that do we know anything about the resources in Syria?
Well, as you mentioned, Syria is a rich country as far as natural resources, and they have a lot of oil, especially in the northeast, where for the last few years the Americans have been protecting the area along with the Kurds, and so a lot of the resources has not been coming to the government, even the current government. Now, there is some solution and some agreement that's being happening now between the Northeast authority there, mainly the Kurds or the SDF, they call themselves. Syrian Democratic Forces and the Al-Shara government. So we're very optimistic and hopeful that this will work out and that everyone will come and join the Syrian government and Syria is united again and we can utilize these natural resources. It sounds like that the United States is gonna withdraw from Syria and that will give an opportunity for these forces to join the Syrian government. So we're very hopeful with that. I'm sure there will be some agreement on an investment agreement. I mean, like any deals between two countries.
Sure.
My hope that there will be good deals between the United States and the Syrian government, where both countries benefit.
Sure.
We do believe, at least in our alliance, we do believe in partnership between United States and Syria for the better of both countries and both people, whether economically or culturally or at any other aspect.
Yeah. The other issue there, as you well know, and this is the big elephant in the room, which is Israel. Israel took advantage of the chaos and then they moved in and they occupied more Syrian land and then they took Jabal al-Sheikh and they took a lot of land belongs to Syria. And I like to remind our listeners that the Golan Heights is a Syrian land occupied by Israel. It's not Israeli land. I was surprised that there was really no mention of that. And I understand that, right now they're focusing on rebuilding the country. But don't you think there should have been at least a mention that, this is Syrian land and eventually we like it back?
I think the Al-Shara government did mention that they wanted the Israeli to at least withdraw from every area that they took recently and stop the bombardment. And there was actually some statement of that regard. And Saudi and Turkey also, had a supportive statement. So this was mentioned. Now, whether this was mentioned in the talks, I'm sure it was brought up. We don't know what they agreed on. You have to remember that right now the administration relationship with the Netanyahu government is not the best. I mean, you can just think about it. President Trump went and visited the region there. His first international visit, he did not even visit Israel or meet Netanyahu. So that's a big. So there is issues between the two government at this time, and so we don't know where things going. We would like to see peace in that region. We would like to see that whether in Syria or Gaza or anywhere in that region, we would like to see people safe, have food, have a way to prosper and live and thrive.
Opportunity, yeah. I mean, when I think about it, I come from southern Lebanon, and I think about it. My father, who passed a few years back, never lived a day without bombardment. All his life. It's like, my God, how many times did he have to build his home? Isn't it time that the people there live for at least a good amount of time without worrying about war and destruction and all of that. And I share your sentiment. And then again, I really understand the focus now is on economics, but I hope that, because the United States said is one of the demands of Syria is to be part of the Abraham Accord, which means having normal relations with Israel. And then hopefully at that time, the Syrians will be in a good position to really ask for their land back and really forge a good agreement with Israel.
Yeah, absolutely. The issue here is much more complicated for the Abraham Accord and for peace. You're not talking about United Arab Emirates that's far away from and has no occupied land. Here you've got occupied land, you've got borders, it's much more complicated, and so it's going to take longer time, and it's going to be much harder to reach peace there. The hope, at least for now, is, or at least peace agreement. What I meant, the hope right now is to have peace where there is no daily bombardment on Syria, and or not no bombardment at all. I mean, why are you bombarding a
Yeah.
country,
Yeah.
a sovereign country that's not threatening you? The Al Sharia government said we're not interested in threatening any of our countries.
Yeah.
So why are you doing that? And you're making an extra enemy without need. They came, they said, and be honest with you, Syria is not in a situation that they can fight or do anything at this time.
Exactly.
They,
Exactly.
they need at least 10, 20 years to just rebuild their country. And so the last thing they want is a war with anyone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so for the interests of the Syrian people, they better now get peace. They don't need to get peace agreement. They just need to have some kind of ceasefire where no one fight anyone, so they can build
Yeah.
their country. And
Yeah.
at some point of time,
Yeah.
when situation and environment and condition allow, then there could be a peace talk where hopefully the whole Arab nations get in peace with a reasonable government in Israel that's
Yeah.
striving for peace as well. Because
Yeah.
it's in their interest. I mean, even the Israeli, in their interest to have peace. The people there, I know their government now is probably more on the right wing and they want to fight. But just imagine, even Israeli people, why do you want to always live in risk and threats and fear?
Yeah.
Peace is
Yeah.
good for everyone. The
Yeah.
Palestinian, the Gaza people, they need, as you mentioned, they need opportunities. They need way to live. If you don't allow them those opportunity and you keep besieging them and starving them, of course they are gonna go and
They're gonna fight you
fight
back.
you.
Yeah. 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 They're gonna fight you back. Yeah. Yeah. And again, what I was hoping to see is that little bit mention of the fact, like, persuade the Israelis to stop bombarding Syria and then stop stealing land, because it's gonna be very difficult. As we all know, it's very difficult to get land back from Israel. So hopefully that, but again, the focus is on rebuilding the country right now. Excuse me. What do you hear from your friends in the Syrian circuit as far as, what can you do here in America to really help the situation in Syria?
We have to have a strong Syrian American lobby.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We that can advocate for better relationship of both countries for to ensure full implementation of for humanitarian assistance, for partnership where Syria and the American people, of course, benefit and thrive. So that's what the Syrian American can do here. That's the least they can do. Of course, there is also some expertise that could go and help.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, in my personal opinion, the most important thing is to have a strong American Syrian lobby that could help push uh,
I agree.
things for Syria. I mean, just see the APAC, for example, how much they do for Israel. They do much more than anything they can do by advocating and lobbying for Israel. We need to have a strong advocacy efforts by the Syrian American, and we do to some degree. We were essential, and there are stories actually. Some of our board member were crucial in saving Idlib in 2018, where 4 million people were about to be displaced or killed. And the story is there, is in CNN and is in Wall Street Journal, where how the Syrian American lobby was able to change the U.S. policy. And from that area, by the way, from that time, because what happened at that time, the story is very intriguing, to be honest with you, that
Mm-hmm.
the Assad and the Russian and the Iranian were evacuating every area that has rebels around Damascus and Ghouta and Daraa and Homs, and sending, after starving the whole area for a month and bombarding them, then they allowed them to go to Idlib on the border with Turkey. And
Mm-hmm.
then that area grew from 1 million people to 4 million people. And Putin decided he's going to go and take that area. And there were 4 million people. They have no other place to go to because Turkey closed their border. And my brother and 4 of his kids were there.
Mm-hmm.
And at that at that historical moment, President Trump came here to Indiana to support one of the senators, and we had the opportunity to meet with him and tell him about what's going to happen. And he said he's not going to let that happen. And within
Good.
10 days, there was a ceasefire. And he himself talked about it about a month later. He said, when he was asked, he said, yes, a Syrian woman stood up, told me about her sister and her kids there, and told me about what's going to happen. I read the same thing in the failed New York Times, and I asked Pompeo and Bolton not to let this happen. And from that area, after we helped save that area with the 4 million people in it, 7 years later, those people were able to take back Syria, all Syria, and topple Assad regime. You can tell how powerful that moment was.
Absolutely, absolutely. You brought him in a very important point, which is you have to have a seat at the table to be effective. And what you guys are doing is really incredible. And I hope that you continue advocating for Syria, because this is a very crucial time to do that. And I want to really thank you for being with us. We're almost out of time. And, I ask the Lord to bless you and bless your work, and then bless the country. And hopefully that you guys, succeed in bringing Syria back from chaos.
Thank you so much, Khalil. God bless you and all your audience. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mike, for great production. And thank you, Jerry, for calling. I really appreciate your listening to all our listeners. And excuse me. And I want to remind you that only understanding and wisdom can bring us together, and we can work together for the common good. Thank you again. We really appreciate it, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Bye now.